You know this pentatonic shape. You know some bar chords. But you're still struggling to write or improvise anything that truly stands out? Well, diminished chords are the secret you're missing. They not only allow you to play lines that stick out, but they open the door to creatively connecting chords and keys all over the fretboard in a way you've never seen before. But why should you even listen to me? Well, after a decade of playing live music and teaching hundreds of lessons to help guitarists play freely all over the fretboard, there's been hundreds of hours poured straight into diminished chords. So I know that these 4 steps are going to change your life. Step 1 being, what are diminished chords? Well, we need to know how we can build chords and relate chords to each other to dissect how these diminished chords are actually built. So in that beginning there, I played a little A minor, C, and F. Now, none of those are diminished, but we're going to break those down to make the diminished chords make sense. So we start on a little A minor here. We want to break down the intervals inside of that chord, not just what is the chord, but how is the chord made. In our A minor chord, we have the root of the chord, which is going to be A, and then we would want to walk up the minor scale, because we're on a minor chord, to pick out the intervals. So if we walk up, we only have to pick out 3 notes, which is going to be our root, the A, our third, which is C, and the fifth, which is going to be E. Now when we do that, we want to classify how the third is fitting into the chord, because this is what defines if the chord is major or minor while we're starting out. So on our minor chord, we have a flat 3, which is going to make sense when we go to our major chord, which has a major third. So if we were to just stay on A and play A minor and then go to A major, we're only moving that one note. Now on C, our root, third, and fifth, I relate them to the C major scale. So we play C major. How can we fit those notes into the chord? Root, third, fifth. And then our F, it is the same thing. Root, third, fifth. That's our major and our minor chords. Now a diminished chord works very similarly to that, but we flatten the 5 as well. So if we're on that A minor and we wanted to make it diminished, we already have the flat third, which is in a diminished chord, but we need to flatten our 5 as well. And that's what gives us a diminished chord. Now we know what diminished chords are, but to really be able to use them, we need to know how they commonly fit into keys. And to build chords out of just the notes in our scale, we can take the intervals that we got for our minor chord or for our major chord and just walk them up to scale. So if we were going in A minor, we would have A minor and then, while we're there, B diminished, right? So our diminished chord is the 2 chord in minor, the second chord. And then if we're in a major key, the diminished chord would commonly fit on the 7th note of that scale. So if we're in, say, C major, it would be that same note, B diminished, and the same chord. Because A minor and C major are the relative keys to each other. But how do we actually write with them? Well, I like to think about these diminished chords often as being passing tones. So here's an example of a progression using a diminished chord. One way I like to use them is as passing chords. For example, if I'm on an F major 9 here, which would be the 8th fret on the A, 7th on the D, 9 on the G, and 8 on the B. That's our F major 9, and I want to go down to a D minor 7, which is barring the 5th fret here and then adding in 7 on the D and 6 on the B. So, well, if I'm thinking about that as being in F major here, I could use the E diminished chord. This is an E diminished 7, which is rooted on our A string. We have 7 on A, 8 on D, 6 on G, 8 on B. I can put that between those chords. And it pulls them together in a way that they don't do on their own. They sound fun. It's just another way to add some texture between them. So we and we can pass them not only where they fit into the key, because that's our 1 going down to our 7. We can also pass them when we're just going between chords in general. So watch this. If we're on that, we go down to our D minor 7 here. We can bring that down to a G7, to make it a little progression here. And then we have an A minor, and then we can go up to B diminished, and then here is a B flat over C, and then that brings us back home. But we're using that B diminished as a connector chord here. So we're going here, and then brings us back home again. So I made a little loop with those chords, and it sounds like this. And if you really want to lock in your diminished chords all over the fretboard, I have all of them laid out for you, ready to practice inside of my free community, link down below. And the group is still super small, so I can personally answer any questions you have in there 100% for free. I hope to see you in there. Step 3 is how do we actually improvise with these diminished chords? Because we can play them, we can find them, we can use them, but we want to be able to play over them now. Well, the best way to think about this is how we would play over any chord, which is just following the chord tones in the track you're playing over. So if we have this loop set up, we would want to know how can we follow the chord tones of that loop. And this applies to any loop, and we can use the diminished chords to play over them. So in this loop, we had those 2 diminished chords. So the way I would think about it is while the chords are playing, how would I actually follow the chords? Well, I always first play the progression. I mean, in this instance, literally, like I made the loop, but often if it's a backing track or a song, I'll learn the rhythm part first. And then that way I know the chords. Like if you sit here and you play the chords, you don't need to learn this example progression, but for any song, you sit there and you play the chords, and then you start picking out individually the notes of the chords, and saying like, okay, well, where else can I find them? I mean, we got F major 9 there, and then it'd be kind of weird to go down to like an E diminished, possible though. A little 9 on there. But you want to find the chords all over the neck, that way you can use them. So when I'm playing over this progression, I'm thinking, all right, we got that F major 9, and then it goes E diminished, D minor 7. The first thing I'm going to do playing over is target those notes. Right, I'm going straight to the chord. We had the major 7 there, and then going on to the top of that diminished chord in here, and then to the 3rd of that minor chord. So that's always what I think about when I'm trying to play over these chords, is how can I just play the chords? And that could look a little something like this. And when I'm thinking about these diminished chords while I'm playing, I kind of think about them differently for different contexts. For example, in that progression, I'm thinking about the diminished chord pretty much as an individual chord, like it's its own thing. I'm going from this major chord down to a diminished chord. So I'm thinking about the chord as its own thing. We have the 1, flat 5, we have a double flat 7, and the flat 3. But if I'm moving up to the diminished chord from a major chord, say for example, I have like a G major to a G sharp diminished, and then to an A minor. If I was playing over that, I would think about the diminished chord as it relates to the G, because when you do that motion of moving it up 1 half step from a major chord, all that's really happening is the 1 is going up. So we have this 1, 3, 5, G sharp diminished now. All we're doing is moving the 1 up a fret. So if I'm playing over something that's, say, G sharp diminished, A, and D for an example, I would think about G major, playing G, and then move that 1 up a half step, and then think about A minor, and then think about D. This is a little D dominant 9. I've gone on too long on this damn video. Do I dare just not have a step 4? No, fuck it, that's what we're doing. And if you're an intermediate guitarist that's tired of just learning useless licks and being stuck in the pentatonic box, and you want to be able to actually play over chord changes and not just fake your way through them, then check out this video right here, and I'll break down exactly how I help guitar players unlock the fretboard.